My name is Tessa Monroe. I'm 29. And I learned the cruelest kind of betrayal doesn't always start with lipstick on a collar or a strange perfume on someone's skin. Sometimes it starts with a promotion, a title, a new wardrobe, and a look in your partner's eyes that says, I'm rising, and you're staying exactly where you are. I'm a mechanic. I've been one since I was 23. 6 years of busted knuckles, oil-stained sleeves, and the kind of problem solving you can't fake. I love the work. I love the honest click when something finally fits the way it's supposed to. I love the way an engine will tell you the truth if you know how to listen. The shop I work at isn't fancy. It's a brick building with a rolling bay door that groans every morning like it's waking up with us. The air always smells like metal and heat. The guys I work with are the kind who will roast you all day and still show up at midnight if your car dies on the side of the road. And my boss, Hank, isn't just a boss. He's the closest thing I've had to a second father since my grandpa passed. Because my grandpa, Walter Monroe, is the reason I'm here. Before cancer took him, he made me promise I'd finish restoring his 1967 Mustang. That car is more than chrome and nostalgia. It's a time capsule. It's every Saturday morning I spent as a kid standing on a milk crate so I could see over the hood while Grandpa taught me how to hold a wrench like it mattered. He used to grin at my tiny hands and say, "Oil runs in our veins, kiddo, not blood." When he got sick, the Mustang sat under a tarp in his garage like it was holding its breath. After the funeral, I pulled that tarp off, and I swear the dust felt like grief, like the car had been waiting for me to either keep my promise or let it die with him. So I kept it alive. Every extra shift I picked up, every weekend I gave up, every time I said no to brunch plans, I was saying yes to Grandpa's voice in my head. And for a long time, I thought I was doing it for my future too. Because 4 years ago, I met Ethan Caldwell. Funny thing is, his dad is a mechanic too, owns a little shop across town. One afternoon, his father brought a transmission job to Hank for a second opinion. I was under the hood, hair shoved into a messy bun, grease on my cheek like war paint, when Ethan's dad leaned over me and said, "You're the one everyone keeps talking about." I looked up, squinting past the fluorescent lights, and there Ethan was, standing a few feet behind him, hands in his pockets, wearing this half smile like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to be impressed. His dad did the classic dad thing. My son works downtown, big office, fancy brain job, but he can't even change a tire. Ethan rolled his eyes. "I can change a tire." His dad laughed. "She probably does it faster." And that was it. That tiny moment of teasing, of warmth, of something simple. His dad asked me to take a look at Ethan's car, said the AC was acting up, like it was an emergency. When Ethan came to pick it up, we started talking right there by the bay door. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into long drives with the windows down, music low, the kind of quiet that feels safe. Ethan worked at a marketing firm downtown. Nothing glamorous at first, just a regular position on a team that moved too fast and talked in buzzwords. But back then, he wasn't like them. He'd ask about my day and actually mean it. He'd listen when I described a stubborn bolt like it was a story worth hearing. He even came to the garage on weekends, not to humor me, to be with me. He'd sit on a stool near the Mustang project, elbows on his knees, watching like the car was a living thing. Sometimes he'd hand me tools. Sometimes he'd just talk, telling me about clients and meetings and how exhausted he was from pretending to care about fonts. We moved in together after 2 years. Small apartment downtown, not luxury, but clean, bright hours. We had routines. I cooked on nights when my hands weren't shaking from heavy work. He cooked when he felt guilty for working late. We fought about stupid normal things, my boots by the couch, his wet towels on the bed. But we had a rule. We didn't go to sleep angry. And it worked until it didn't. When Ethan proposed, it was at my parents' house during Sunday dinner with both families squeezed around the table. He got down on one knee. My mom cried first. His mom cried louder. My dad tried to pretend something was in his eye and failed. Ethan's dad slapped the table and shouted, "That's my boy!" I said yes so fast I didn't even let him finish the question. We planned a simple wedding. Ceremony at a local church. Reception at the community center where Ethan used to volunteer. Ethan said he'd rather put money into our future than burn it on one day. And the Mustang, our dream was to drive it as our wedding car, tie flowers to the mirrors, let Grandpa's promise escort me into the rest of my life. For a while, I truly believed I was the luckiest woman alive. Then, 3 months ago, Ethan got promoted. It wasn't just a raise, it was a leap. Suddenly, he was a senior brand strategist, which sounded important enough that people started treating him like he'd invented oxygen. He was thrilled, talking fast, laughing too loud, telling me about high visibility projects and executive access. I was proud of him. I was. I kissed his forehead and told him he earned it. I didn't realize I was kissing the beginning of the end. The changes were so obvious it almost felt insulting. New haircut, new cologne, new clothes showing up in boxes every other day, shirts that cost more than my grocery budget for a week. One night I saw the credit card statement while paying rent and my stomach turned. A $320 jacket, a $180 belt, and he said it like it was nothing. It's for work, he told me. I have to look the part now. The late nights started next. Emergency meetings, after-hours strategy sessions, networking dinners. I remember staring at him across our kitchen counter one night, the Mustang grease still under my nails, and thinking, how many emergencies can marketing have? He'd come home at 9, 10, sometimes later, eyes bright like he'd been somewhere exciting. And he stopped telling me details, stopped letting me in. Then came the phone, face down on the table, always. If it buzzed, he'd snatch it like it was hot. If I walked into a room, he'd tilt the screen away. He started taking calls on the balcony, even when it was freezing outside. One night I woke up at 1:02 a.m. and saw him texting in the dark, his face lit up like a secret. When he noticed me, he turned the phone off and rolled over too quickly, pretending he'd been asleep the whole time. The worst part wasn't even the suspicion. It was the way he started looking at my life like it was small. He used to brag about me. Tessa can fix anything. Tessa's solid. Tessa's the hardest worker I know. After the promotion, those compliments disappeared, and in their place were tiny comments that landed like needles. You're wearing that? Do you ever think about doing something less physical? My coworkers are taking their partners to this thing. Do you even have something nice enough to wear? I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, that he was stressed, that promotions mess with people, that love doesn't vanish overnight. So I did what Grandpa always told me to do when life got messy. I focused on what I could fix with my hands. I threw myself into the Mustang, every bolt, every panel, every piece, because I could feel something slipping through my fingers at home, and I didn't want to admit it was him. And then, one Tuesday night, Ethan was home early. Too early. He'd ordered fancy sushi from that expensive place downtown, the kind he only bought when he wanted to distract me from something. He was dressed like he was going somewhere, full work face, the kind of outfit he used to laugh at. And he kept pushing his food around like he'd lost his appetite, but not his nerve. Then, slowly, he put his phone down. For the first time in months, he put it down on purpose. He turned to me on the couch, eyes rehearsed, voice quiet and dramatic. There's something I need to tell you, he said. And in that moment, the whole apartment felt like it was holding its breath. Because I already knew. I just didn't know how ugly he was about to make it. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't have words. Oh, I had plenty, but because I'd learned something about Ethan over the last 3 months. He hated silence. Silence made him fill the air. It made him over-explain. It made him reveal the parts he didn't realize were showing. So I let the quiet sit between us like a third person on the couch. The sushi smell, soy and rice and something sweet, turned my stomach. I watched him push a piece of salmon in a slow circle with his chopsticks, not eating, just stalling. His knee bounced, once, twice. Then he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath all day. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he said, voice careful, measured, like he was reading from a script he'd practiced in the mirror. I kept my face neutral. I took another bite of my sushi, chewing slowly, like my appetite hadn't suddenly died. Okay, I said, about what? He blinked, thrown off that I wasn't panicking. Well, us. He said it gently, like he was breaking news to a child. About where we're headed, about the wedding. My hand tightened around the chopsticks. I set them down before my knuckles gave me away. We're headed to marriage, I said, keeping it light. That was the plan. He nodded quickly, too quickly. Yes, that's exactly why I'm bringing this up. He laughed once, nervous and fake. I feel like we should explore other options before we lock everything in. The phrase lock everything in made my skin crawl, like I was a contract he was reconsidering, like marriage was a box he was suddenly afraid to step into. I tilted my head. Other options? He swallowed. I think we should try an open relationship. There it was. The words hung in the air, heavier than they should have been. Open relationship. A phrase Ethan used to mock, when his coworkers brought it up in stories. He'd call it a slow-motion breakup, a way for people to cheat without consequences. And now he was saying it like it was wisdom, like he was offering us growth. My stomach sank, but I didn't let it show. I'd been expecting some version of this. I just didn't know he'd say it out loud with that much confidence, like he honestly believed I would smile and nod. I stared at him for a beat, let him sweat, let his eyes dart, searching my face for fear. Then I set my food down. I took a slow breath, and I said, "You know what? I've actually been thinking the same thing." His chopsticks froze midair. It was like I'd slapped him with a compliment. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. You have?" he stammered. "Yeah," I said, leaning back like I was settling into a movie. I mean, if we're being honest, I've wondered how to bring it up without making it weird. Ethan stared at me like his brain was trying to load a page that wouldn't open. I kept going, so I'm glad you said it. It's perfect timing. His face did something strange. Shock, then suspicion, then panic. Because he wasn't here to have a conversation. He was here to get permission. And he'd only rehearsed one outcome, me agreeing to be the loyal one while he played pretend freedom. He swallowed again. "Okay, so you're open to it." "Totally," I said, forcing a smile that felt like glass. I reached for my phone, casual. Actually, I was thinking about where I'd start. His eyes narrowed, a quick flash of irritation. "Start?" "Yeah." I scrolled like I was considering a menu. "You know that guy at your office? The new receptionist. I've seen him a couple times when I dropped off lunch. The one with the dark hair. I think his name's Jordan?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Jordan?" "Mm-hmm." I nodded thoughtfully. "He seems nice, and last time I was there, he mentioned he's into classic cars. I thought maybe I could show him the Mustang sometime. You know, if we're doing this." The air shifted. Ethan's face went blank for half a second, like the mask slipped, and then it snapped back, hard and furious. "Why would you want Jordan's number?" he demanded. I blinked slowly, like I didn't understand the problem. "Because you just said open relationship. We both get to see other people. That's literally what it means." "That's not what I meant," he said sharply. I kept my voice calm. "Then what did you mean?" He stood up so fast the takeout container rattled on the coffee table. I meant it for us." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. It's not about you dating some random guy." "Random," I echoed. "I've met him. He's not random." Ethan's eyes flashed. "Tessa, be serious." Oh, I was serious. I just wasn't playing his game. "I am," I said. "I'm being really mature about this. Which, honestly, I assumed you wanted." He stopped pacing and looked at me like I'd betrayed him. And that was the moment I knew. Not that he was cheating. Not even that he wanted an open relationship. But that he didn't see me as an equal in this new life he thought he was stepping into. He wanted freedom for himself and obedience from me. "I just think," Ethan started, tone softening into that condescending voice he'd picked up lately. "I think you're not in the right place to do this." I let that sit. Not in the right place. "Career-wise," he added quickly, like it was a fact, you're still figuring things out." I almost laughed. "Still figuring things out?" I paid half our rent. I kept our fridge full. I fixed our cars. I showed up for his family dinners. I was the one who knew how to make a broken thing run again. But sure, I was figuring things out. "So," I said slowly, "you're saying you can date other people, but I can't." Ethan threw his hands up. "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that," I said, voice sharper now. He huffed. "You don't understand what this is about." "Enlighten me." He looked at me like he was annoyed I needed an explanation. "It's about growth. It's about where I am now, my position, the people I'm around, the opportunities." There it was again. My position. Like he'd been promoted into a different species. I crossed my arms. "And how does sleeping with other people help your opportunities?" Ethan's eyes flicked away. "It's networking." I laughed. One sharp sound I couldn't stop. "Networking?" "Yes," he snapped. "There are expectations, social dynamics. You don't get it because you're not in that world." The words hit like a slap. Not because they were true, because they were what he believed. And he said them with the straight face, like being a mechanic made me less capable of understanding humans. I leaned forward. "So you need to network with your supervisor." Ethan froze. I watched it happen. The micro flinch, the tightening around his eyes. Then he forced a scoff. "What? Where is that coming from?" I tilted my head. "I don't know. Maybe from the late-night emergency meetings? The phone calls on the balcony? The fact that you're suddenly allergic to leaving your screen face up around me?" Ethan's cheeks flushed. "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" He grabbed his phone off the table, like holding it made him feel safer. I can't believe you're doing this. This is why I'm hesitant, because you twist everything. No, I said, calm as ice. I'm finally saying it out loud. Ethan's voice rose. You're insecure. You're projecting. Just because you don't have... He stopped himself, but the word was already there in the air between us. Status. He tried again, softer. I need you to be supportive. I'm trying to build something bigger for us. For us, I repeated, while you date other people. He exhaled loudly like I was exhausting. You're making it sound gross. It is gross, I said, because it's not open. It's not honest. It's just you trying to cheat with a permission slip. His eyes widened, angry. Don't say that. Why not? I stood up too, meeting him eye level. Because then you'd have to admit what you're really doing. Ethan's face hardened. Tessa, you're not going to ruin this for me. Ruin this. Not ruin us. Not ruin the wedding. Not ruin the life we built. This? The promotion. The attention. The new version of himself he was addicted to. I stared at him, feeling something inside me snap. Not explosively, but quietly. Like a rope finally giving way after holding too much weight. And the strangest thing was, I didn't feel heartbreak first. I felt clarity, because now I understood. He didn't want me. He wanted what I represented. Stability, loyalty, someone to come home to when his networking got messy. He wanted to upgrade his life without losing his safety net. I took a slow breath and nodded once. Okay, I said. Ethan blinked, thrown off. Okay? I walked past him toward the bedroom, already reaching for my overnight bag. Okay, I repeated. You can have your open relationship, just not with me in it. His voice shot up behind me. Where are you going? I didn't turn around. Somewhere I don't have to audition to be respected. Ethan followed me into the bedroom, furious now. You're being dramatic. I zipped the bag. No, I'm being done. He stepped closer, voice lowering like a warning. Tessa, don't do something you'll regret. I finally looked at him, and I saw a man I barely recognized. Same face, same eyes. But the way he looked at me now wasn't love. It was ownership. Like I was something that was supposed to stay where he left it. I lifted my chin. The only thing I regret is not realizing sooner that you were already gone. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I walked out of our apartment with my bag in my hand and my heart strangely steady in my chest. Outside, the air was cold and clean, like it was trying to wake me up. I drove straight to Paul and Jenny's place. Paul's one of the guys from the shop, and Jenny has the kind of kindness that doesn't ask questions before it offers you a blanket. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't say, "What happened?" She just stepped aside and said, "Come in." And as I sat on their couch that night, staring at the dark window, I realized something terrifying and relieving at the same time. Ethan hadn't just asked for an open relationship. He'd asked me to shrink myself, to stay loyal, stay quiet, stay grateful, while he reached for a life that required me to be beneath him. And my gut, my grandpa's voice, was screaming one thing. There's more to this story. So the next morning, instead of going to work, I did something I never thought I'd do. I became the kind of woman who follows the truth. I woke up before my alarm. That alone told me everything. My body already knew what my mind was still trying to negotiate. Paul's couch was stiff, the kind that leaves lines on your cheek, but I'd barely slept anyway. My thoughts had paced all night. Ethan's voice, his words, the way he'd looked at me when I refused to play along. Don't do something you'll regret. Funny how men like him always think regret belongs to women. I stared at the ceiling as dawn crept in through the blinds and made a decision I didn't love, but needed. I texted Hank, "Taking the day. Personal emergency." He replied almost instantly, "Take it. Dave's got your bay. Call if you need anything. No questions, no guilt, just trust." I got dressed quietly and drove my truck, not the Mustang. The Mustang was still in pieces, vulnerable and sacred, and I wasn't dragging Grandpa into this mess. I parked across the street from my apartment building just before 7. Ethan's car was still there. Of course it was. He'd said he had an early meeting. I watched the front door like I was waiting for a suspect in a bad cop show. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, which surprised me. I thought they'd shake. I thought I'd cry. Instead, I felt focused. At 7:24 a.m., the door opened. Ethan stepped out wearing one of his new tailored coats, phone already in his hand, posture crisp, like he was playing a role. He didn't look back at the building, didn't hesitate. He got in his car and pulled away. I waited a few seconds. Then I followed. I kept 2 cars between us, heart pounding, but mind clear. He didn't head downtown. He didn't take the route to his office. He drove the opposite direction. My stomach dropped. 15 minutes later, he pulled into Riverside Towers. a luxury apartment complex with glass balconies and valet parking. The kind of place you need a code to enter and a salary to justify. I parked across the street and watched, and then she walked out. Lauren Price, his supervisor. Tall, impeccably dressed, hair perfect in that effortless way that probably takes 45 minutes. She didn't look surprised to see him. She smiled like she'd been waiting. They didn't talk much. They didn't hesitate. She reached up, looped her arms around his neck, and they kissed. Not a stolen, nervous kiss. Not a we shouldn't kiss. A comfortable one. Practiced. Familiar. My hands started shaking then, hard enough that I had to set my phone against the steering wheel to keep it steady. I hit record. I zoomed in. I captured the way his hand rested on her lower back like it belonged there, the way she laughed into his mouth like this wasn't the first time, the way they pulled apart and smiled like people with plans. They walked to her car together. They didn't go to work. They drove to a brunch place downtown, the kind with linen napkins and mimosas on weekdays. I stopped recording, sat there, let the truth finish landing. This wasn't a maybe. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't some tragic mistake born from stress or temptation. This was routine. This was a pattern. I didn't confront them. I didn't scream. I didn't follow them inside and make a scene. Because for the first time, I understood something clearly. I didn't need his confession. I needed my exit. I drove back to Paul and Jenny's place and sat in the driveway longer than necessary, staring at the steering wheel like it might tell me how to feel. Jenny opened the door before I even knocked. One look at my face and she said, "You found something." I handed her my phone. She watched the video once, then again. Paul came up behind her, saw the screen, and let out a string of curses that would have made the guys at the shop proud. But Jenny didn't yell. She just turned to me, eyes steady, and said something that hit deeper than anything else that morning. "This isn't about you being a mechanic," she said. "This is about him being a liar." I swallowed. She squeezed my shoulder. "He would have done this no matter what job you had." She was right, and somehow, knowing that hurt less. I spent the rest of the morning making phone calls. The venue first, then the caterer, then the DJ. Each cancellation felt like tearing down a piece of a life I'd already imagined. The woman at the flower shop cried when I told her why and refunded my deposit in full. "Buy yourself something nice," she said softly. "You deserve kindness right now." The last call I made before my hands started to ache was to Ethan's parents. His mom answered. "Tessa?" she said, surprised. "Aren't you supposed to be at work?" "I was hoping I could come by," I said. "There's something you need to see." The silence on the line was heavy. "Of course," she said finally. "Come over." They were both home. His dad, Robert, still wore the same oil-stained work shirt he'd had on every time I'd ever seen him. He waved me in with a smile that faded the second he saw my face. "What's wrong?" his mom asked. I didn't explain. I showed them. The video, the timestamps, the photos, the credit card charges I'd screenshotted, hotels, restaurants, expenses Ethan had explained away as client stuff. Robert paced the kitchen, hands running through his hair, anger simmering just under the surface. "How long?" his mom asked quietly. "I don't know," I said, "but I think it started after the promotion." Robert stopped pacing. "After Lauren became his supervisor," he said slowly. I nodded. Everything clicked. His mom covered her mouth, tears spilling over. "We didn't raise him like this." "No," I said gently. "You didn't." Robert exhaled hard and leaned against the counter. "You're still family here," he said, "no matter what happens." That almost broke me. Before I left, his mom hugged me so tight I felt like she was trying to hold me together. "Thank you for telling us," she whispered. "We need to handle this." I drove back to Paul and Jenny's with a strange sense of calm. I knew what came next. And I knew I wasn't backing down. Because the next time I saw Ethan, he wouldn't be explaining anything. He'd be answering for it. By 6 o'clock that evening, I was standing in Ethan's childhood kitchen, slicing onions like muscle memory could keep my hands from shaking. His mom moved beside me, quiet, efficient. The radio played low, some old classic rock station she always used while cooking, but no one was really listening. Everything felt wrong in a way that almost felt familiar, like the calm before a storm you already know the shape of. "Thank you for coming," she said softly, not looking at me. "I know this isn't easy." I nodded. I didn't come to fight. She finally met my eyes. "I know." His dad was in the garage, the door cracked open. I could hear tools clinking, the rhythmic scrape of a rag against metal. He'd gone out there to keep himself from pacing holes into the kitchen floor. I'd done that before too, used work to hold myself together. At 6:12 p.m., we heard tires crunch in the driveway. My stomach tightened, but my spine stayed straight. His mom reached out and squeezed my hand. Stay strong. The door opened. Ethan walked in like he owned the place. Tailored coat, polished shoes, confident stride. He stopped cold when he saw me. What is she doing here? He demanded, looking past me to his mother like I was a mess she'd forgotten to clean up. Before she could answer, his dad stepped in from the garage, wiping his hands on that same shop rag he'd used his entire life. Sit down, Robert said. That voice. The one parents use when the conversation is already over and you're about to find out why. Ethan hesitated, then he sat. His jaw was tight, defensive, annoyed. This is ridiculous, he muttered. I've been calling all day. She's overreacting. Then this should clear things up, his dad said calmly. He looked at me. Go ahead. I didn't rush. I pulled out my phone, placed it on the table, hit play. The kitchen went silent except for the sound of Ethan's own laughter echoing from the screen, his arm around Lauren's waist, her head tilted toward him like she belonged there. Ethan's face drained of color. He started, then stopped. That's not... Not what? His mother asked quietly. Not you? I swiped to the next photo, then the next. Hotel charges, restaurant receipts, time-stamped calls. How long? She asked again. Ethan's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Robert didn't raise his voice. That was worse. She's married, he said. All of us turned toward him. Lauren, he continued, your supervisor. She's married. 2 kids. Suburbs. I looked her up after Tessa came by this morning. Ethan's shoulders slumped. I watched the truth finally land. Not the betrayal, not the lies, but the realization that the fantasy he'd built himself wasn't real. That he wasn't special. That he was replaceable. I didn't know, Ethan said weakly. That's funny, I said evenly, because I found messages where you joked about her husband's schedule. His mother covered her mouth. Robert's jaw tightened. Ethan started crying then, not quietly, not gracefully. Big, messy sobs. I just needed more, he said. I felt stuck. I felt like I was outgrowing everything. Outgrowing what? His mother asked, voice trembling. Love? Loyalty? Decency? He gestured around the kitchen. This, all of it, the smallness. The word landed like a slap. I stood up slowly. You could have just told me you didn't want to marry me, I said. You could have said you fell for someone else. I would have survived that. He looked up at me, eyes red. I didn't want to lose you. No, I said. You didn't want to lose what I gave you. His mother stepped behind me, resting her hands gently on my shoulders. Your father works with his hands, she said quietly to Ethan. Is he small? Ethan looked at his dad. Robert stood there in grease-stained jeans, shoulders slumped, not from shame, but from disappointment. I built this family with that job, he said. Put food on this table, paid for your education, loved you every step of the way. Ethan's face crumpled. I didn't mean... Save it, Robert said. You don't get to insult honest work just because you wanted a shinier life. I took a breath. I canceled the wedding, I said. The deposits, the plans, everything. Ethan jolted. You can't just... I can, I said, and I did. I pulled the ring off my finger and set it on the table. Keep it, sell it, trade it for whatever you think you need to feel important. His mother was crying openly now. I hugged her. Then I turned to Robert and held out my hand. He took it with both of his. You deserve better, he said. As I walked toward the door, Ethan finally broke. Tessa, please. I stopped, turned back one last time. The worst part, I said quietly, wasn't the cheating. It was the way you made me feel like I should be ashamed of who I am. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in. Behind me, his mother said softly, actions have consequences, sweetheart. I didn't look back. I got in my truck. And for the first time since everything started falling apart, I felt free. After that night, I didn't go home. Not to the apartment, not to the life that used to be mine. I went to the garage. It was past 7, but the bay lights were still on. Hank was there, sleeves rolled up, leaning over an engine like nothing in the world could surprise him anymore. He looked up when he saw my truck pull in. Didn't ask questions, just nodded toward the open bay. You want space or you want noise? Noise, I said. So I worked. I worked until my arms burned and my hands were numb and my head finally went quiet. I worked like if I stopped moving, everything I'd held together all day would come crashing down on me. Hank brought me a bottle of water at one point. Your grandpa used to work like that when he was angry, he said gently. Didn't mean he was broken. Just meant he cared. I stayed late most nights after that. Regular shift, then overtime, then Mustang time. The car started coming together in a way that felt almost symbolic. New wiring harness, restored panels, the engine cleaned and rebuilt piece by piece. Every bolt tightened, felt like reclaiming something Ethan had tried to take from me without asking. A week later, exhaustion finally forced me to slow down. That's how I ended up at the coffee shop across the street from the garage. It wasn't trendy. No exposed brick or ironic chalkboard quotes. Just strong coffee, scratched tables, and a bell over the door that rang like it actually wanted you there. I sat in the corner booth with my phone face down for once. I didn't want updates. I didn't want apologies. I didn't want Ethan's name lighting up my screen again. A few minutes passed before someone approached. "Rough day?" a voice asked. Not overly cheerful, not rehearsed. I looked up. He was tall, mid-30s maybe, dark hair pulled back loosely, wearing a simple apron dusted with flour. His eyes were warm in a way that didn't feel invasive. "Yeah," I said honestly. He nodded once, like that was enough. "Coffee?" "Please." He poured it himself and set it down gently. Didn't rush me, didn't hover. "Name's Caleb," he said. "Wave if you want a refill, or if you don't want to talk. I'm good either way." Then he walked away. Something about that, about being given space without explanation, hit me harder than sympathy ever could. I started going there on my lunch breaks. Same booth, same coffee. Caleb never pushed, never pried. Sometimes we talked about nothing. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. One day he noticed the grease under my nails. Instead of grimacing, he smiled. "You work with machines," he said. "Cars," I replied. "Mechanic." His eyes lit up, not politely, genuinely. "That's awesome," he said. "My sister gets ripped off every time she goes to a shop because she doesn't know what she's looking at." I laughed before I could stop myself. That was how it started. A few days later, during a slow afternoon, he slid into the booth across from me with his own mug. "Hope this isn't weird," he said. "My feet are killing me." "It's fine," I said. We talked. Really talked. He told me he was finishing nursing school, working the coffee shop for flexible hours. He listened when I explained how engines worked like living things. He asked questions, smart ones. Not once did he act like my job was something I needed to justify. When I offered to show him basic car stuff so no one could scam him, he looked like I'd handed him a gift. Seriously, that'd be amazing. That Saturday, we stood in his apartment complex parking lot while I showed him how to check oil, change a tire, read warning lights. He took notes, got dirt on his jeans, didn't care. After that, he started stopping by the garage sometimes, never in the way, just dropping off coffee, waving at the guys. Even Dave smiled, and Dave hated everyone. One afternoon, Caleb showed up looking worried. "My car's making a weird noise," he said. I grabbed my tools without thinking. Loose belt, 5-minute fix. He tried to pay me. I waved it off. The next day, he brought me lunch. Just a sandwich, chips, nothing fancy. But it mattered, because it came without expectations, without comparisons, without the unspoken message that I needed to be more. One evening, he sat in the garage while I worked on the Mustang, studying quietly. "That car means something," he said finally. "My grandpa," I replied. He nodded. "Tell me about him." So I did. And when I finished, Caleb looked at the car, then back at me. "He'd be proud," he said simply. No grand speech, no advice. Just truth. That was when I realized what Ethan never understood. Respect doesn't come from titles. It comes from seeing someone and choosing not to look away. By the time the Mustang was ready to start, I wasn't fixed. I wasn't healed. But I was grounded. And for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The day the Mustang roared back to life, the whole garage went quiet. Every guy stopped what he was doing. Even Hank leaned against the tool bench, arms crossed, like he didn't want to miss it. I slid into the driver's seat, hands resting on the steering wheel that had once fit perfectly in my grandpa's palms. The leather was new, but the weight of it felt old, familiar, earned. Caleb stood near the bay door, coffee in hand, trying not to look too invested. I turned the key. For half a second, nothing. Then the engine caught. A deep, clean growl filled the space, confident and alive, like it had been waiting for this exact moment to remember who it was. Someone let out a low whistle. Hank smiled the way men like him do when words aren't enough. Your grandpa would have loved that sound. My throat tightened. Caleb stepped closer, eyes wide. That's incredible. I shut the engine off and just sat there, breathing. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because for the first time in a long time, something had gone exactly right. That Sunday, we drove the Mustang to my parents' house for dinner. Caleb offered to follow in his car, but my mom had already decided. "Nonsense," she said. "You sit in the passenger seat. That car was built for memories." As we pulled into the driveway, my mom stepped outside, took one look at the Mustang, and burst into tears. Happy ones. My dad just nodded, slow, proud, the way he always did when he didn't trust his voice. Later that evening, there was a knock at the door. I knew who it was before I opened it. Robert, Ethan's dad. He stood there holding a bottle of wine, shoulders a little slumped, eyes tired, but clear. I heard the Mustang was finished, he said. You're welcome to see it, I replied. He ran a hand along the hood, reverent. Walter would have loved this. We sat at the table together like family, because somehow that part hadn't changed, and maybe never would. The fallout after that was swift. Lauren's affair didn't stay secret for long. Turns out Ethan wasn't the first, or the last. Her husband found out at a company event. Publicly, messily. Divorce followed. So did exposure. She lost her position. Then came the boardroom shakeups. Then came the silence. Ethan tried to call me when it all started unraveling. I didn't answer. By the time he realized he'd traded loyalty for illusion, it was too late. Last I heard, he'd been demoted, then encouraged to resign. The fancy apartment was gone. The designer wardrobe was being sold online. He'd moved back in with his parents, suddenly very interested in starting over. I wished him no harm. I just didn't wish him back. As for me, life got honest. Hank pulled me aside one evening after closing. I'm getting tired, he said, and I don't trust many people with this place. My heart thumped. I want you to be my partner. I said yes before fear could catch up. Caleb didn't rush anything, didn't promise forever, didn't make speeches. He just showed up, with coffee, with patience, with hands willing to get dirty. And that was enough. Sometimes the best karma isn't watching the people who hurt you fall apart. It's watching yourself rise, steady, grounded, unashamed. I kept my promise to my grandpa. I kept my dignity. And I learned that love, real love, doesn't ask you to shrink. It meets you where you stand.